Hello, space engineers, and welcome to the FighterBuild. I hope that you guys are all having a great day out there. This episode is really just, it's just detail from episode 5 is really what it is. It is all the time that I spent disassembling and reassembling this fighter craft. As stated previously, the goal here, the primary goal, is just to make this thing a little more durable. I probably suck at fighter combat. My prior experiences with that haven't been very in-depth. I haven't done very much of that. And I feel like I'm going to need to take a couple of stray bullets with this thing if I want it to last at all. So I'm putting extra thrust here on it because I know that it's going to need extra thrust when we're done putting all this extra armor on here. This is for me, this is one of the coolest parts of Space Engineers, and it is also one of the worst parts of Space Engineers. And part of that is because I play all of my games in survival, and I'm not using any kind of symmetry mod or anything yet. So all of the, all the block layout is got to be repeated on the other sides. What's cool about this is that this is where you get to make the things that you're creating, you get to make them look cool. And then so instead of just using some weird monstrosity that you created on the spur of the moment because you needed to complete task A or task B or whatever it was, and so you made this single purpose you made this single purpose and pretty ugly machine. Then you use that and you have plans. You're like, oh, I'm gonna make this look cool. It's gonna look like this when I'm done. And you never really get around to doing that by the time you're done using it. So, I don't know. So I've been trying to just go ahead and bite the bullet and do everything with my builds early on. Everything related to making them look like completed builds early on. That way, I get to enjoy it the way it's supposed to look while I play with it. So we'll see if I can maintain that. This greebling session here, which is mostly what I'm doing, I'm just adding armor, really. So, this was kind of painful because I spent, 3 hours on this before I finally got done, and I'm happy with the end product. I'm sure that it's not some kind of amazing fighter. It just has light armor, and it lost some of its maneuverability as part of this process, even though I added a bunch of thrusters onto it. One of the things that I'm doing with this build, I don't know if you guys have noticed that yet, is that I'm putting some interior lights inside the body, and that's just kind of it's a neat little trick here, because what it does is it allows you to illuminate the outside of the ship without having a light on the outside of the ship. So once you put that light in there, you set the offset of the light so that the light source is outside of the ship, and it shines a light on the hull and basically makes it look like the ship is glowing. Artivisor, I don't know. There's a guy that I'll put a link to his playthrough. He did a no survival playthrough. I just can't pronounce the guy's name. It's like Artivizer or Artiviser. I don't know. I know I'm butchering that name terribly, but he did a no suit survival playthrough where he showed me that trick, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'll put the link to his playthrough at the bottom of this video. If I remember. Regarding all this greebling, you know, I think I have a different, at least from the blueprints that I've been seeing on the workshop, I think I have a different sensibility for how to do design than other people. What I tend to do is wrap the designs in a shell of armor that is somewhat smooth and looks somewhat organic. A lot of my ships and builds often end up looking like creatures or similar to creatures, and I kind of do that on purpose. But it's also kind of my default as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'd like to branch out and do you know, different kinds of designs and things, and I've been you know, I've been working on that. That's part of what's going to be going on with this ship that we're making to fly home with, is that it's going to be a very irregular looking ship, and it's going to have superstructure and stuff hanging off of it, and it should look very different. I'm not just going to be like skinning it like this, which is part of why I added that decorative blocks mod by UOH. They have, or he's got some really cool looking girders and stuff. That I'm intentionally using this reddish, brownish, grayish color for this fighter because I don't intend it to be the final color. I intend to paint this thing later with the paint gun. And if you start with a off color, usually it helps to have a texture on there. Then when you use the paint gun, you can choose how much you want to paint that and change the color of the textures up. I don't think it's going to end up working out very well for this build. I do it on this build. But I think it just, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of camouflage. It kind of breaks up the lines of it when I'm done with it. But part of why it doesn't work as well is that this is a small grid ship, and the way that tool works, the way the paint gun works in terms of like how much variation you get in the color, it's related to the build state of the model. So if the block took a long time to build, then you're going to have a big color range that you can you know, adjust, where you can just lay down some of the color. If it doesn't have a big build time, if it doesn't take long to weld the block up, like these armor blocks here, then you don't get very many opportunities to choose different shades of that color. It's pretty much just going to be the very intro shade, or if you're lucky, or it's going to be the final color. I put a lot of tips and points on my builds because I like the way that looks, but also because it serves a purpose in that if your ship is running into things, those points aren't really touching other blocks, and so if you beat them up, it prevents the rest of your ship from getting beaten up. We've done quite a bit of greebling to this thing, trying to add armor to cover up the thrusters and batteries and that stuff. which means that we've added like, I don't know, at least 100, 200 steel plates to it, at least. And so we need to go check it out, see how it flies, see if we need to add some more thrusters and whatnot. Which it kind of looks like we do. We need to add some more left-right thrust, and that's just not enough. Because we just can't maneuver well enough to be a good fighter craft. We can still go fast enough with the main thrusters. That's fine. One of the things that I've been trying to do with this build is to keep the original, try and keep the original aesthetics of this fighter craft. So that means preserving these wings off the side here, and like trying to keep the middle of the fighter craft as sort of a little bit of a bulge, and then these wings as sort of a little bit of a bulge. It's like at this point in this build, I've already spent forever on it, and and we're just getting to greebling the bottom. I mean, I'm working on the bottoms of these wings here, and there's still a whole ton of work to do to cover up the hydrogen tank on the bottom and the thrusters and all the rest of that. And I do, I do get a little irritated about working in this, right next to this cargo container, because it's kind of hard to get any perspective because I keep bumping into it. I can't back up to see what things look like. So we're gonna just undock the fighter here and just float it away from the cargo container for a little bit, and do the rest of the work there. I think in the process of putting the skin on this ship that I add, I don't know, at least 300 to 400 extra steel plates. And that's one thing that I mean, I know why it works this way, just because of when things happened in the process of making the game. But like half armor blocks, they don't weigh half as much as a full armor block, or like armor panels. They all weigh the same amount because they all have one steel plate in them. So it would be nice if, some of those blocks didn't take a full steel plate, or you know, some of the other ones just take more steel plates and steel plates way less, or something like that. But it's just a small part of the game where I think that a little bit of rebalancing could be of some benefit. You know, it doesn't really matter that much. You know, Space Engineers is a blast to play the way it is. But, you know, when you play it for a long enough time, eventually, you know, you have other ideas about about what might make things a little better. One of the things that I'm going to try and do more of in the future when I'm recording this stuff is to try and play a little more without the HUD, like not have the HUD on, because it makes it hard. It makes it hard to take screenshots later, you know, for thumbnails for the videos. And I've been realizing, I mean, when you're playing the game, you don't always notice that stuff because you're just kind of looking at what you like need to look at, like what you care about, what your brain's focusing on. But like while you're watching this video, all these other kinds of things are popping up, and you know, it detracts from it a little bit. I know that this is a ridiculously long build to sit here and watch, especially in this format. I'd like to get another computer here eventually and be able to do some of this stuff from a third-person perspective. Cut all of this stuff out of the main episode just because, you know, it is taking so long, and I didn't really know how to break this down into some kind of, you know, usable content for the main episode that wasn't going to be some kind of, I don't know, wasn't going to be contrived somehow to the point where I just, you know, you can only spend so much time doing this stuff because you could spend forever editing all these things. But, you know, we all have lives, so. So these spikes on the back here on the left and right, those are actually going to protect this thing if I bump into stuff, if I'm, you know, rotating the ship around and I mash the back of it into something. Those tips will take damage before the thrusters or any of the rest of that, and it'll probably just be those tips. The new blocks that have been added recently have really gone a long way to allowing you to make these skinning jobs, you know, all the angles line up a lot better, which is really cool. I have to say though that not having all the blocks available to make everything perfect does sort of encourage you to look at and try out other shapes for things, which I've found pretty useful because there are things that I've done because I don't have the blocks that I want that I never would have done otherwise, and that you know, I figure out that I actually like that look. So part of that is you know, with this particular build, it's the little jaggedy parts where it doesn't exactly line up. Although with these sections right here, that's not a problem. I mean, it's looking pretty smooth for the most part. I'm actually really happy with the final look and shape of this fighter here. You know, I mean, all I really did was wrap it in armor, but I think it looks really cool. We're gonna paint it here, and you know, I unfortunately, when I'm done with the painting, I don't think it really a lot more could be done, I think, with the painting to make this thing look cool when I'm done with it. Let's just say that. Just gotta add a few lights on here so we can see this thing, and so it'll illuminate itself a little bit better, like illuminate its own hull a little bit better. I've been getting better at, you know, recessing lights and things. I think this just goes right in with the design perfectly, and it'll help keep those things from getting shot off when I'm getting shot at. I was a little nervous when I put this on here because that ion thruster is really close to that little half block, but I think the ion thrusters only really shoot about 1.5 blocks out. That's all they really damage, I think. I don't think they get I know they don't get a full 3 blocks. That's something that can be kind of fun about building these fighter ships. You put the thrusters inside the armor so that it can't get directly shot until the armor gets blown off. But I didn't want to do any of that here. That would have really changed the shape of the ship a little bit, and I don't know, it almost would have made it a completely different ship instead of just a refitted ship, which is all this is supposed to be. I'm just trying to retrofit this thing. Well, if you got this far, I'm pretty impressed. I must not be doing a horrific job of talking, and I guess this content is at least mildly interesting. So, you know, I appreciate you guys sticking around for it. I'm glad that I'm doing something that somebody's interested in looking at here. I know this is a very long build, and all I'm doing is just throwing armor on. Or throwing armor on and painting. There are points where I'm painting this and things, I feel like things are working and I'm happy about it, and or they're starting to work, and then I do more painting and then I'm not so happy about it, and then I do more painting and it just kind of looks like a camo job just about by the time I'm done with it. I might change that up later. especially if I post this as a blueprint or something. But for now, this thing's going to look a little ugly, I think. Alright, we have finished the basic greeble, and we're doing a test flight here, and it's flying okay. It's a little sluggish compared to the way it was before I started working on it. But everything's covered up now, and I think it's maneuverable enough that we'll be okay. But you know, like I said, I haven't had a lot of experience in combat with space engineers, so we'll see. That's it for the fighter build. Be sure to check out what happens next on episode 6. If this content is interesting, then please help me out and give me a like and subscribe. Thanks.